Hi, Jules. Thanks very much for joining us on Listen Better today. Joined today by Jules Herd, who is the chair of the PRCA's PR Council and also CEO and founder of Five in a Boat. So what a year. I'm saying that to all the leaders I'm meeting at the moment, Jules.
Yeah.
Can you just summarise for us, and I know this is hard, but in a sentence, as an agency leader, what's it been like for you?
I mean, crazy. I think so obviously when the pandemic hit, my first thought was don't panic. I think a lot of people were kind of thinking, oh my God, my business is going to go down the pan. And I looked at it slightly differently. I was more interested in what opportunities it would present to me. I think the other thing I was absolutely ecstatic about is the fact that I didn't have to go into London every day. So, that to me, was great. I think I tried to look at the various elements and I guess forecast what could potentially go wrong and then mitigate any circumstances that would occur. So the first thing I did really was look at my overheads and work out where I could reduce those costs. So I cut my office space immediately. Our team was pretty much, we were 2 days a week virtual anyway. We were only 3 days a week together. So it wasn't too much of an adjustment. But just not having an office didn't really make any sense, even though at that stage, I think, people were still going in, we didn't. I think I, looked very closely at clients and a couple of them cut budgets, but most of them remained relatively stable. The real opportunity that presented itself for us is that we recognized that subscription-based clients were actually making quite a lot of money. They were having big increases in their revenue, purely based on the fact that people were at home and they were spending their time probably doing things they shouldn't be doing, like gaming or upskilling in some instances. So one of the first things I did was phone up my new biz guy and said, look, we're going to pivot. We're going to go after subscription-based businesses only for the next 3 months. And we're going to focus in on the entertainment and the edutech space. And within, I think, the first 4 weeks, we'd won 3 new clients, which actually then bumped the first wave of the pandemic from us for a financial perspective. So that was really good. And then as the pandemic continued, a lot of my clients operate in the scale-up space and they're constantly going through various rounds of investment. And the first 6 months of the pandemic were pretty slow from a funding perspective. A lot of them were slowing down. Investors were a little bit nervous. They couldn't really see light at the end of the tunnel at that stage. So we were looking at areas which remain sort of fairly well invested. And one of those was obviously medtech and health tech, because people were looking for various solutions to the pandemic. And so we then pivoted further into health tech and went after a couple of clients that operate in that space, one of which has developed a solution for monitoring patients in care homes, which is obviously hugely important given that care homes were being massively impacted. So we won a couple of clients there, got some more business in, and actually ended up having a really good year. We were up on last year, so that was it's been great. And people have been slightly reluctant to renew longer term contracts. A lot of it's sort of moved more to month or 3 months to 3 months, but that's absolutely fine. It's the nature of the beast. And it didn't, as long as we had enough in our pipeline, it didn't really affect us too much. I think the other things that I was very keen on doing is having I would say, relatively younger workforce. To me, this is probably the first real kind of negative experience they've probably had, in their working life. So it was hugely impactful for them. And I was very conscious that, young people like to go out and they like to spend time with their peers, and that just wasn't happening because of the virtual world, and very, very conscious of people's mental health. So I spent a long time working for a mental health charity. So I from the start looked at how I could continue to reward my team. So all of them have had pay rises this year. And secondly, how I can continue to keep them happy beyond money, because it's not just that. So, I mean, we've done all, the usual quizzes and whatever else, but we've also done things like murder mystery nights where people get dressed up. We've done virtual horse racing. We've done all sorts of things like that. And we've tried to keep it very focused on retaining that social element as well as the business element. So the team's also grown. So we've hired people in Germany, the Netherlands and the States, which is great. So all in all, I think it's been, touch wood, hope it continues, a pretty good year.
So a crazy year, but with a real focus on understanding how to safeguard the business at the outset, to develop the new biz and pivot your model to make sure you're attracting prospects that we're going to be able to deliver through the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then also a focus on mental health and well-being. So yeah, really, really smart moves there. What about understanding your clients' needs and the particular problems they were facing? So I know you've got some clients in the music tech sector.
Yeah.
Obviously, as we emerge from lockdown 3, everyone will want to know what's going to happen to our music, our live events. So what's your perspective on that?
So you're right. We did probably, I would say 40% of our clients are music tech companies, and it's been a really difficult year for them. Obviously, the biggest impact has been on live. So if you've got anyone that's operating in the live space, they've had their revenues significantly cut. Anyone that's operating in arts, I've got clients that write scores for musicals. I've got clients that are artists. I've got clients that actually work in entirely different areas, like sample libraries and virtual instruments, and they've done incredibly well because they're another subscription business where people have had more time to spend composing. So on one hand, they've done well, but on the other hand, those clients that have been impacted by the lack of live, it's been incredibly hard. And I think they've had to look for new revenue streams, because if you look at the music industry, a large part of revenue comes from live performance. So there have been clients that have obviously moved to online, which is great in many respects. It has given them the opportunity to make sure there is an element of income coming in. It's not at all the same as 10,000, 100,000 concert venues or whatever it might be, but it has given them new opportunities. But on the other hand, there's been lots of people doing that, so it's made the space quite crowded. So I think it's been a huge challenge. And I think, I'm not going to go too much into government bashing, but I think, the arts is an incredibly important area for us, as an industry, both in terms of what its contributions to the economy and giving people that outlet from stress and from other areas of their life which potentially have more pressure. And the government didn't really support the arts community. And there have been some fantastic campaigns which have involved supporting creators, like Tom Gray's Broken Record campaign, which has looked at how to funnel money back into an industry at a time where lots of creators are losing out. So it's been I really feel for them. It's been super tough, and we're not there yet. I think it's going to take a really long time to rebuild. That's the reality.
I was going to say, well, how do you see the future of the music industry? What positives can be taken from this extraordinary period of change?
So I think the industry actually has. I think COVID will longer term prove to be quite beneficial, because I think it shone a spotlight on certain sectors of the industry that maybe had escape that spotlight, or should I say, not moved forward very quickly in the past. So the music industry is pretty archaic. It's been governed by the big boys, like the labels, the publishers, the streaming companies, for a really long time now. And in many respects, everybody's a very important part of that ecosystem. And if they don't work together, it will end up being broken. But in many respects, there have been parts of it that have lost out. So if we look at things like royalties, they're not, the distribution of royalties is definitely not fair when you look at all the different people that are involved in recouping those royalty payments. There's obviously been lots of different organizations focusing on how to advance the music industry. There's a huge number of music tech companies that are coming through the ranks now, smaller companies that are looking at how to solve a problem that really the bigger boys should probably be solving, but they're not. There's been a DCMS inquiry into the whole streaming industry, which is again putting a spotlight on where the wealth is going. So I think in many respects, it's actually proven positive, because people that have been losing out for a really long time now, that ultimately that in that creator space, are going to be in a stronger position moving forward. If we look at our startup, community, I think there's £3 trillion goes into the economy every year from startups, and I'm seeing a huge growth in startups in that music tech space. As I said, those that are coming and going, this isn't right. If you're not going to do it as a label, we're going to do it. So I think longer term, there's huge opportunities, but I think that it's obviously that pain point of the next 6 to 12 months, whilst they try and get back on their feet again, that it's going to be a bit of a challenge.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that it's quite a crowded marketplace for those companies that perhaps have pivoted their offer to offer more digital services. You've mentioned startups. So as an agency advising those, how do you help them get cut through in a what's seemingly a very crowded marketplace now?
Yeah, I think, it's the difficult one, isn't it? You've got as a company director or boss, not necessarily me, but people that are looking at going, oh my God, my revenue's tanking and I've got customers dropping off. How can I increase my customer acquisition, numbers, how can I get more money coming through the doors? Often the go-to is, I'll just try and do everything. I'll just try and reach out to all these different sectors. And actually that's not really sustainable unless you're very, very well bankrolled. It's not sustainable. So I think businesses have had to be a lot more focused in their approach. I think they've had to be a lot more targeted in the audiences they're going after. Micro groups have kind of gone through the roof during this time. So it's become less about mass and more about who are your real fans, the guys that are going to stay with you. And I think companies that have adopted better engagement strategies and delivering more to the people that really care will be the ones that survive. I mean, I think, I look at one of our clients, monetization is also key. So you've been in this situation as a customer who has more time on my hands in theory, though really that's not the case. And I've got Netflix and I've got Spotify and I've got Sky and I've got, something else. I've got 6-8 subscriptions. And the reality is I'm not having as much money coming in, so I can't afford to pay for them. Savvy companies have gone, okay, well, we'll launch freemium models because actually, I've had a couple of clients do it. They've monetized at a certain point and realized that it's not sustainable during this period. So they've introduced a freemium, which has given them other opportunities. I've had other clients who have really gone heavy on the engagement, giving added value that perhaps their customers wouldn't normally have got before. So for example, one of my music clients, she was for a period of probably 8 weeks doing a weekly concert. As a fan, she toured last year, but prior to that she hadn't toured for years, so that's giving extra value to her fans that they wouldn't have got elsewhere. I've seen games companies delivering better content to their gamers, the gaming community, as a way of ensuring that they can continue to monetize and that they will continue to engage throughout that time. So, and I think paid for has increased as well in some areas. I think that people have just had to put money there in order to get that cut through, because organic can only go so far. So really it's about focus, it's about understanding your audience, and it's about engaging in the right way with them and not trying to be everything to everyone, because I just don't think that, as I said, I just don't think that's sustainable, given the current economic climate.
So highly targeted and tailored communications and engagement, delivering extra value to those that are already your committed fans, in the hope that will bring in fans around that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now I want to come on to you, Jules, and your leadership style, and how would you say it's been affected, if at all, by the last year? Because you mentioned you've got younger staff members who perhaps haven't seen the recessions that you and I might have been through in 2008 and perhaps the previous one. So have you adapted your leadership style, and what's it brought out in you, the good, the bad and the ugly?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think that clearly, there's been periods of uncertainty and change given, what's happened over the last 12 months, even though we've been pretty stable. And I think, the one thing that I reassured my team throughout, I was pretty savvy in my first year of business in that I put the money all back into the business. So even if we'd been in a position where we lost all of our clients, I would have still had a team to help rebuild, because I could afford to do that. But I think it has made me more cautious about the opportunities that I'll pursue, because what has presented itself in some instances is companies saying, I don't really want to pay you as much as I'd normally pay you because I can't afford to do that. And on one hand, you're thinking, well, I'm just grateful to have some money coming in. And the other hand, you're thinking, this is going to cost me more because, you just don't have the time to invest in something that's not going to pay dividends. So I think I've been more picky about the kind of clients that we go after, and also the kind of clients that are going to make my team feel happy, because it's very important. Everybody's been very panicked about COVID, and I think there's been a lot of irrational behavior across the board. And I think if there are certain clients or businesses that are going to be pretty problematic, you've got to weigh up whether that's worth it in terms of how it's going to impact your employees. And we've had a lot of discussions about companies we want to go after and ones that we feel it'd be better to go after a little bit further down the line when things are a bit more stable. In terms of how I manage people, I think I'm very much look, just get on with it. I don't want to hear you moaning, just get on with it. We've got a job to be done, because ultimately I'm trying to run a business. But actually that's not necessarily helpful to people that sometimes need an hour of my time just to sit and talk about what's bothering them. So I think making sure that the team feels that they can come to me at any point, doesn't matter when it is, to talk to me about whatever might be worrying them, even if it's something, you know, that they would potentially deem to be ridiculous. Actually, it's not, because delivering value to your team goes over and above just making sure that they've got a job and that they're getting paid well. You know, this whole pandemic has brought home and work a lot closer together. And, you know, we're in a situation now where we don't leave our homes. So it's, you know, it's the merging of that. Is it still fair to expect people to be online at 7 o'clock at night because they're just get home? Not really. So I've been kind of very conscious of trying to give them the separation that they need. And me as well, I've got a 6-year-old. So, you know, as I said, I was going into London 3 times a week, which isn't crazy, but I work 80 hours a week, you know, regularly, and have done for many, many years. And I've got the 6-year-old I'm trying to homeschool, which is crazy. You know, hats off to teachers. It's a bonkers thing to do. And just trying to strike that balance between being a business owner, managing a team of people that are in different locations, keeping your 6-year-old happy, homeschooling, you know, trying to have a conversation with your husband every now and then. It's, you know, it has really put into focus that work-life balance, not just for me, but for everyone. And I think it's going to be important that when we go back to whatever normal looks like, that continues, and that people aren't in a position where they feel that they have to stay and work late unless things really need to be done, or, you know, that they can go and have their home time and their free time, and they can escape from, you know, work, because it's all too easy. You know, in the last year, I could still be sat here at 10 o'clock at night, and that's not helpful. That's not giving me the space. That's not making me a good leader, because ultimately, you know, burnout has been huge this year. And if you don't manage your time and manage the way that you handle things properly with your team, then you're all going to be in that position, and that's not going to make them happy. It's not going to make me happy. It's not going to grow our business. So I think I've become a bit more, I wouldn't say peaceful, but a bit more conscious of the fact that people really do need that balance, and that it's extraordinary circumstances. And normally people might have slightly thicker skins, but actually during this pandemic, it's been, you know, almost the opposite. So we need to make exceptions for that.
So it's a case of, yes, we've got to get on with it, but with a touch of compassion around the edges.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What keeps you motivated and inspired? You've described a very big drop down menu of stressors and challenges that you have, but what makes you get up in the morning and think, yep, I can do this?
Well, the fact that I really would like a swimming pool and a cabana at the end of my garden, I'm serious about that as well. I've got my BDI on a natural rock pool. But anyway, I think, you know, I spent many years in corporate answering to other people. And obviously, you know, I still do that now because I have clients, and it's super important. But it's very difficult to lead by example if you don't have control of your own destiny. And, you know, I'm in a really fortunate position now where I can make the rules. And I want to be a role model. I want people to look up at me and think, not that I really care about the fact that I'm female, because I'm not one of these people that kind of feels, oh, you know, I'm finally got to the top, I'm female. You know, I'm running a business, and actually to me, gender isn't important. But there will be people that think that it's very difficult to get to where I am. You know, I'm not obviously at the top of the world, but I've not done too badly. And I want to continue to be that role model, and people to realize that actually anything's possible if you have the right support, the right mentors, the right mindset.
And I'd really like to just finish up with asking, in your role as PRCA's chair of the PR Council, what will good look like in a year's time?
It's probably best asking them that. I mean, I'd like to feel that we can achieve something. So I've had a kind of a big stick this year, which, you know, we're all doing this in our spare time. You know, we're all doing this because we want to make the PR profession recognized as reputable and something that can add real value. And we want to drive positive change. And we're all doing that on top of day jobs, on top of having kids, on top of all the other things that people do in their lives. So in order to demonstrate, you know, our effectiveness, we actually need to deliver. And I think, you know, it has been tough, because it's very easy to sit in a room and just talk and not get anything done. And I've been very strict around setting core objectives and being, you know, putting teams of people in place that genuinely want to work on the areas that they're working on. So be that accessibility and inclusion, or small businesses, or ethics, or whatever it might be. They want to do it. They've got clear objectives, and you know, we're doing really well so far. We've already, I think, hit our first quarterly objectives, and we've got events going on, we've got reports coming out, etc., etc. So I want people at the end of the year to feel like we've all pulled together as a team. It's super important to feel like we're delivering positive change for the industry, and really, you know, people to recognise PR in terms of what it should be recognised as, which is something that, you know, I would love to see PR people on a board. You know, they should be. They're always the ones that thought about afterwards, oh, there's a crisis, quick, call the PR person up, as opposed to using comms as strategic growth drivers, which is what it should be there to do. So I think if we can do that by some of the initiatives that we've put in place, then you know, we'll be onto a winner.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Jules.
No problem.
Real pleasure meeting you today and chatting. And well, I look forward to checking in with you and perhaps 6 months on in your tenure as chair and find out how it's going at the PRCA PR Council.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.